Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we have, well, an extraordinary stack of sources. They aren't just dry reports. They're this rich, blended tapestry of cultural critique, architectural analysis, personal philosophy, and even music.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mix.
We're looking at a world that demands perfection and one person who really tried to redefine what that even meant.
It's truly a study in contrasts and connections. Our source material puts us squarely inside Doriconia, which is a unique society defined by this almost suffocating cultural mandate. Excellence is obligation.
Wow, that's a heavy phrase.
It is. And from there, we zoom in on Val Magnoti, an executive, master chef, and artist whose own internal philosophy, which she calls the climb, is forged directly in the heat of that relentless Doriconian pressure.
So our mission today, I think, is pretty clear. We need to understand the architecture of this intense perfectionist society, its strange economy, its aesthetic approach to justice, its rituals, even its rituals of failure.
And then we meticulously track Val's evolution.
Right. How did she manage to take this external crushing obligation and transform it into an internal, sustainable, and ultimately a shared purpose?
We're looking for the specific nuggets of information that make the society feel real and intensely focused. Everything from the way they use their architecture to police behavior to the way Val personifies her own cognitive functions.
It seems like the goal is really to see how this one philosophy, this pursuit of excellence, shapes every single decision, large or small.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this cultural foundation first. Doriconia. You mentioned the core philosophy, but what are the details that, bring this place to life?
It is a vibrant, intense place. Geographically, our sources place it in the southwest, occupying a narrow coastal plain. It's a pretty small nation, right? About 8 million people, but its philosophical weight is immense.
And the color red, that comes up a lot.
They are heavily linked with the color red, yeah. It symbolizes both passion and refinement, and everything they build, everything they do adheres to this central dictum. Excellence is obligation.
That phrase sounds less like a goal and more like a theological command. What does that mean for the environment they live in? I mean, does nature itself have to be perfect?
That's a great way to put it. It means the environment is intensely curated. The sources describe a landscape of deliberate, almost planned beauty. You have these sharp sea cliffs meeting rugged mountains, but the immediate coastal plain has a mild Mediterranean climate, dry, sunny, perfect for their specialty crops.
So they don't just passively accept the beauty.
No, not at all. They manage it, they enhance it, believing they're obliged to guide it toward its peak form.
I found the details about the specific crops fascinating. It's not just, generic agriculture.
Not at all. They cultivate the ember grapes, grown on meticulously terraced vineyards that are carved directly into the hillsides.
For their famous fire wine.
For the fire wine, exactly. They also use the flame vine, which is this vibrant, fast-growing creeper, specifically to soften and enhance the visual appeal of their severe architecture.
It's like they're painting with plants.
They even exert control over the microecosystem, using citrus oil to deter barrel wasps, ensuring no imperfection mars the perfection of the winemaking process.
That detail, the one about controlling pests with citrus oil, that feels like a perfect metaphor for their whole mandate.
Yeah.
It's the difference between merely accepting nature and insisting that nature adheres to their standard of refined beauty.
Right.
The land isn't just beautiful. They're obligated to keep it that way.
And this commitment translates directly to their structures. They view their cities not as finished products, but as living sculptures, which are perpetually undergoing refinement.
A living sculpture, I love that.
They hold the belief that true perfection is dynamic. It demands continuous, disciplined effort to evolve and improve upon itself.
But that sounds exhausting to live in. If everything is under constant review, what defines their aesthetic?
Visually, it's dramatic. Think terrace villas cascading down hillsides, bell towers, which act as both timekeepers and cultural sentinels, chiming with this measured grace.
And red tile roofs. I remember that detail.
Deep red tile roofs, narrow winding coastal alleys built for specific views. They carve massive wine cellars directly into the cliffs, marrying utility and artistry.
And the sources mentioned inspirations, right? Like historical reference points.
Yeah, they point to places like the Amalfi Coast, southern France, and Greco-Roman ruins, but always with the caveat that Doriconia has dialed up that aesthetic to an obsessive degree of meticulous refinement.
So if the architecture is relentlessly scrutinized, How does this demanding philosophy show up in daily conversation? Does it create like a vocabulary of judgment?
Absolutely. Their language is steeped in quality assessment, reflecting the constant awareness of being judged. If someone attempts to push an effort past the point of genuine natural perfection, making it insincere or gaudy,
Trying too hard.
exactly, they mock it as gilding the gull.
Gilding the gull, that's brilliant. It just perfectly captures that fine line they walk, where the pursuit of excellence, taken one step too far, becomes a mistake, a superficial effort.
And the social pressure is codified into language, too. If someone is facing intense professional, social, or creative scrutiny, they're described as living in the shadow of the bell tower.
Wow. It's a reminder that they are perpetually under the eye of the community and the cultural arbiters.
That level of linguistic scrutiny must create incredible performance anxiety, especially for the young, but it's intentional. This standard is reinforced by mottos that function as moral commandments.
Like what?
They live by phrases like, "The stone remembers the sculptor," meaning every choice leaves an indelible mark on your legacy and your character.
So everything you do is permanent.
And of course, the foundational mandate. Perfection is not pride, it is duty.
Yeah.
You don't aim for excellence to feel superior, you aim for it because you owe it to the collective effort and the continued ascent of Doriconia itself.
Okay, we've established this crushing weight of expectation. Now let's look at how that weight is literally measured and expressed in their economic life and rituals. How does this obligation manifest in the material world?
This is where the society becomes truly fascinating. We move into section 1, the perfection economy and ritualized society. I mean, if everything must be perfect, then daily life must be a high-stakes performance, starting with necessities.
Like food, which the sources describe as both art and identity.
Precisely. Doriconian cuisine is highly refined, rich, and intensely herbaceous. The focus is on balance and absolutely flawless presentation. It's a demonstration of their mastery over ingredients.
So not just comfort food.
Not at all. We're talking about dishes like Ember grape roasted lamb, Sea Cliff sun-baked flatbreads, fire food gelato, and the highly prized cliff rice, which is grown on high, challenging terrain. The daily meal is a deliberate visual and gustatory statement.
Every ingredient has been pushed to its peak before it's even assembled. It's not just sustenance, it's a commitment to that aesthetic mandate.
And that aesthetic commitment extends directly to how they dress, using clothing and ceremony to reinforce lineage and status.
What does that look like day to day?
Their everyday wear is flowing linen tunics, often draped in earth tones accented with specific deep colors, reds, golds, ocean blues that signal their region or their guild. It's elegant, but durable.
But the formal wear is where it really gets intense.
That's where the philosophy truly shines, yeah. Formal robes use gold thread embroidery, meticulously detailing lineage. Their jewelry is crafted from coral, lapis, and that truly surprising detail, wine glass enamel.
Okay, you have to explain that one. Wine glass enamel.
They take the shattered remnants or the byproducts of their most exquisite craft, the glass used for the most refined wine, and they reforge it into high-status wearable art.
That's incredible.
It's the ultimate statement that no material, not even perceived waste, can escape the sculptor's hand.
So, jewelry made from broken wine glass. That's truly elevating the mundane. It says they achieve perfection not by avoiding waste, but by transforming it. And these visual statements ensure that family insignias showing their historical commitment to excellence are constantly visible.
It's a perpetual status check. Now let's consider how this pursuit of visual status translates into how they handle money. Their economy thrives on high-end artisanal exports. They are literally selling their perfected world.
Right. Key exports like their Doriconian fire wine, high art sculpture, and architectural consulting. But the currency system itself is what caught my attention. The petal and the masterpiece.
The everyday currency, the petal, is utilitarian, polished, vine-wrapped coins for transactions. Pretty straightforward. But the high-value currency, the masterpiece, is the economic manifestation of their philosophy.
These aren't just coins.
No. These are small, meticulously crafted medallions that are actual works of art, maybe depicting a famous building, a legendary sculptor, or a perfected view.
And the critical difference, and this is what blew my mind, is that their value is not fixed by supply or a central bank's decree.
Precisely. Their value increases over time based on rarity and, crucially, cultural appreciation. It forces everyone who holds wealth to engage not just with production, but with cultural literacy.
Wait, so my ability to pay for something depends on whether a select group of elites likes the building etched on my medallion, or whether they consider the artist still relevant.
Exactly. This is the deep cultural genius or, the potential trap of Doriconia. Displaying wealth is, therefore, displaying taste. If the wine press order or the sculptor's choir decides that a specific motif or artist is suddenly passé,
Your money is worth less.
the masterpieces depicting it might crash in value. This translates expertise in aesthetics directly to economic clout. It elevates the connoisseur above the simple accumulator of capital.
That sounds incredibly volatile and inherently elitist.
Yeah.
It forces constant aggressive refinement and policing of taste.
Mhm.
I mean, if the cultural elite shifts their preference, a family could lose its net worth overnight simply because their aesthetic choices are deemed outdated.
It circles right back to the original mandate. The system demands that your money itself must continually demonstrate its worth to the collective.
And that is why those powerful craft guilds, the wine press order, the sculptor's choir, the Mask Rights Guild control more than just production standards.
We control the standard of wealth. They ensure excellence is ubiquitous. Because if the core currency is tied to quality, then everything beneath it must adhere to that same demanding standard. It's a closed loop of aesthetic duty.
So Doriconia doesn't have an economic system so much as it has an economic art form. Given this intense, aesthetically driven society, how do they handle the highest forms of societal management, like governance and justice?
Well, the leadership structure is designed to mitigate stagnation. They are led by the Council of Elegance, which has 13 seats elected from laureates recognized masters in fields like law, sculpture, or strategy.
So it's a meritocracy, but a very specific kind of meritocracy.
It's a mechanism that attempts to balance inherited lineage with proven continuous merit. And the art composer is the ceremonial head, focused on culture, but the real theater of the system happens in the Hall of Judgment.
Right. Justice is an art form. That's another one of those phrases.
That's it. The sources state that truth must charm before it shows. It's a belief that truth presented poorly is truth wasted. Therefore, a compelling aesthetic argument, one that is graceful, elegant, and structured flawlessly, is absolutely vital to winning a case.
But that's the danger we just talked about, right? Doesn't that risk a polished lie winning over a clumsy, unpolished truth? It sounds inherently biased toward the rhetorical genius or, the person who can afford the best legal artist.
That's the tightrope they walk, and that's why they have a counterbalance. The bellkeepers.
Okay, tell me about them.
These are secretive investigators who dig for facts behind the scenes, operating with extreme thoroughness, ensuring that the elegant argument is also factually sound.
And their silence is key, right? They never ring their silent bells until a case is definitively closed.
Correct. Their motto is, truth is best when sculpted slowly. They prioritize exhaustive research and irrefutable, elegant outcomes over speed.
So they're the fact checkers.
The ultimate fact checkers, yes. This insistence on thoroughness is meant to prevent a well-argued but flawed position from prevailing. It ensures that the aesthetics of the judgment are matched by the integrity of the underlying facts.
But the downside of sculpted slowly, justice must be the time it takes. In our world, justice delayed is often justice denied. In Doriconia, it seems like slowness is proof of quality.
It is. Speed is equated with sloppiness. And because their society is so focused on aesthetic purity, they have unique ways of handling failure and crime rather than traditional confinement.
Right, they don't use prisons. So how do they handle severe societal failure?
They rely entirely on social and psychological pressure, centering on the concept of legacy. They use public shaming ceremonies involving what they call the curtains of critique.
That sounds ominous.
The offender is forced to stand before the council and deliver an eloquent, detailed performance of self-analysis explaining, with maximum clarity and aesthetic argument, why and how they failed. This is followed by a demanding redemption challenge.
That sounds intensely traumatic. It forces the offender to essentially sculpt their own shame in public.
The intent is to force confrontation with the mistake and to ensure the lesson benefits the community. However, if the crime is egregious or the redemption challenge is failed, the consequence is societal exile.
So what does that mean exactly?
Losing standing, losing family legacy, and having one's name removed from future masterpieces and historical records. For a Doriconian whose identity is intrinsically woven into their family name and collective history, losing that legacy is universally seen as a punishment far worse than physical confinement.
It's the annihilation of identity within the one context that matters to them. Given this relentless pressure, especially on the youth, how does the society prevent a total psychological collapse?
The pressure is immense. Children are taught to sing before they speak, mastering their chosen craft early, and they must never let the silence show weakness.
But what if you're not an artist?
Well, the system is clever in accommodating those who are not naturally artistic. Paths like strategy, logistics, or agriculture are viewed not as lower professions, but as unfinished sculptures. They have potential, they require discipline, and their perfection is still possible, just in a different form.
So the pressure is mitigated slightly by broadening the definition of excellence. But the escape valve seems to be the quiet bloom. This is the fascinating paradox where they acknowledge the necessity of imperfection.
The Quiet Bloom is a solemn, moving spring festival. This is where, publicly, they honor the necessary failures that lead to eventual growth. Broken works, discarded designs, and unfinished pieces are displayed alongside notes detailing the specific lessons learned from the error.
It shifts the focus from instantaneous perfection to perfection through refinement.
Exactly. By ritualistically honoring trial and error, they prevent the inherent fear of failure, which the entire society cultivates, from completely paralyzing creative action. They acknowledge that the path to the perfect statue requires the chipping away of stone that didn't belong.
And this gives us the necessary context for Val Magnoti. Val is the ultimate product of this environment. She grew up breathing this air where scrutiny, aesthetic duty, and the possibility of devastating exile are constant threats.
And this brings us seamlessly into Section 2, where we meet Val Magnoti and trace her evolution from product of Doriconia to internal rebel.
In her 2024 profile, she's immediately introduced as the uncompromising executive, a powerhouse defined by ambition, grit, and incredible structure. She's seen initially as the lone climber.
She channeled the Doriconian emphasis on meticulous planning into her career. Life isn't accidental, it's a series of mountains to be mapped out with precision. Her strategy aligns perfectly with the culture's demand for form.
So she doesn't just succeed.
No, she builds an elegant, irrefutable structure around her success.
We see that structure in her approach to becoming a master chef. She didn't just hook. She broke the entire process down into defined structured levels.
Novice, competent, proficient. This is her Doriconian inheritance working for her. She argues this structure is essential for true creativity. The sources call it freedom within structure. You must have the rigid, perfected foundation, the duty to understand the rules well enough to know how, when, and where to improvise meaningfully.
But Val is not just a high-achieving conformist. She is carrying this powerful, profound internal conflict that ultimately forces the change.
This internal friction is the engine of her story. She is a gay woman from a kingdom where tradition, lineage, and prescribed roles, especially regarding marriage and contracts, are paramount. She feels the crushing pressure, stating she felt like a stranger in a story they choose.
And her immense success only intensified the traditional expectations on her personal life.
Of course, and this internal war finds its expression in her music. Track 3, I'm Not Your Bride, is a complete sonic rejection of her role.
It's a fascinating blend of sounds, right?
It is. It uses Baroque pop elements, the elegant, structured, traditional sound of Doriconia, and fuses them with raw, visceral punk dissonance. The sound itself is a war between tradition and rebellion.
And the lyrics.
Lyrically, it's an absolute refusal to be defined by a strategic lineage. I'll be your rival, but I'm not your bride. The iconic line, "You want a rose, you get my thorns," is her declaring that her strength and her sharp edges are the very traits she refuses to relinquish for the sake of conforming to their gilded cage.
It's the sound of her breaking the pedestal. But immediately after that massive external defiance, we get the heartbreaking counterpoint. Track 4, If Only They Knew.
This track pulls us into her profound vulnerability. It's a stripped-down pop ballad exploring the immense cost of this rebellion. It's all about the fear of rejection, the struggle of having to hide her true self, her spark.
And she asks that central, agonizing question.
She does. What if this truth is the cause of my regret? She is wrestling with the possibility that authenticity might mean losing the foundation, the family, and the standing that Doriconia had always provided.
That immense duality, outward strength, inner vulnerability also impacts how she interacts with others, creating some awkward relational dynamics in her professional life.
The valve incident with Tommy perfectly illustrates this. She, operating from a place of pure Doriconian efficiency and physical strength, effortlessly fixes a challenging mechanism he was struggling with.
She's just trying to help.
She's trying to help, but her ease inadvertently makes him feel inadequate. The key takeaway, though, is her learning curve. She doesn't become defensive. She recognizes that true excellence includes emotional intelligence.
So she evolves.
She learns to lead by example, respecting his autonomy and recognizing his unique strengths, his essential creativity, which informs her 5 strategies for mentoring.
So she's evolving from the rigid lone climber into a leader tempered by empathy. But the internal struggle remains intense. The sources point to intense loneliness and self-doubt even after major victories.
She confesses to relying too much on proving herself to herself. She would achieve a monumental goal and feel a moment of emptiness, immediately moving to the next objective without savoring the current summit.
A classic high achiever pattern.
This constant, relentless internal pressure leads her to question her core self, wondering if she is fundamentally flawed or has some kind of internal disorder.
It's that relatable high achiever burnout, mixed with the crushing weight of a culture that demands constant, visible perfection. The breakthrough moment is her realization.
Yeah.
She is not broken, just wired a little differently.
That realization is critical. It's the shift from self-flagellation to acceptance. She starts embracing her unique structure, owning her ambition, and accepting her success without requiring external validation or constantly needing to prove the necessity of her flaws.
And we hear this acceptance manifest in her defiance in the kitchen, captured perfectly by track 5, Rivoluzione in Cucina.
It's described as Italian folk meeting new metal, the acoustic tradition of her ancestral roots, clashing with the aggressive driving sounds of her new identity.
That's a perfect sonic articulation of respectful revolution.
It really is.
She's honoring tradition, mentioning Nana's sauce and the old wisdom, but fundamentally breaking the recipe.
Exactly. She uses culinary creativity as the ultimate vehicle for rebellion and evolution. The track features the powerful lines. Tradition is not enough anymore. Questa è la rivoluzione in cucina.
This is the revolution in the kitchen.
Excellence, for Val, now means improving the tradition with authentic self-expression, not simply maintaining a status quo that denies her true identity. She's taking the Doriconian concept of continuous refinement and applying it to her own life and heritage.
That revolutionary self-acceptance sets the stage for her philosophy of growth. She took the Doriconian demand for excellence and, through profound internal restructuring, transformed it into a framework for shared, meaningful growth. The climb.
Section 3 details this philosophical pivot from cultural obligation to integrated personal purpose. Val defines the climb as a philosophy of meaningful ascent. It's a mindset where every challenge, every peak, is a deliberate, conscious choice that asks one fundamental question: will you rise?
And what's fascinating is the why. It's not for personal glory or conquest. She explicitly rejects that.
The primary purpose is that the view from the top is meant to be shared, and the enduring value lies not in the temporary satisfaction of the summit, but in who you become on the path up.
It's like she's internalizing that Doriconian idea of the stone remembers the sculptor, but reinterpreting it through her own lens.
Exactly. She says, the summit is mine, I'm forevermore, but the person you've become, that's lasting. Success is redefined as internal character growth achieved through effort.
And this philosophy must immediately address the inherent dangers of striving, specifically the false peaks.
We all recognize the experience of the half-climb, the plateau, where we overestimate our knowledge or skill after initial progress.
Right, where you know just enough to think you're an expert.
Val's system is implicitly setting up a defense mechanism against that. It's what we call the Dunning-Kruger effect. Her philosophy warns directly against those half-climbs, the danger of becoming complacent.
But she offers reassurance, right?
Yes, and that's key. She says that sometimes the mountain tricks you, sometimes you hit a plateau, but you are still laying groundwork. If you maintain the effort and integrity, you are still climbing.
This sounds intensely intellectual, too, like a methodology for continuous learning. We hear this intellectual grind in track 6, Melting Pot.
It's rat metal, perfectly embodying that relentless intellectual effort. Val uses the culinary metaphor again, treating knowledge like ingredients that must be rigorously filtered. She raps. Every idea is a spice, but not all spice belongs in my recipe.
So she is insisting on intellectual authenticity, refining the signal from the noise. It's an intellectual insistence on authenticity.
The goal is alchemy bubbling truth in the broth. She is crushing weak arguments and extracting the refined core truth. It reflects the bellkeeper's mandate. That truth must be sculpted slowly, but she has internalized that sculpting process into her own critical thinking.
And the necessary engine for that intellectual filtering is pure, unrelenting discipline, which brings us to track 7, Grind.
This track is drive drum and bass pure, sustain rhythmic momentum. It rejects the idea of magical talent or shortcuts entirely.
It's all about the work.
All about the work. It emphasizes relentless repetition and self-improvement. Grind drills on drills. Grind fundamentals grind.
This speaks directly against the Doriconian focus on singing before you speak. Val seems to be saying that brilliance is not instantaneous, it's accumulated.
Absolutely. Val insists the truth is found in the tedious, meticulous work. It's the empty hours that winners learn. It's about data tracking, marking every session, and counting the unseen hours that lead to mastery.
It's the practical application of the excellence mandate, but divorced from the aesthetic judgment of the cultural elite.
Right. And this disciplined action requires extraordinary internal management, which brings us to her internal architects, the cognitive functions she has personified to manage her ascent.
This is a beautiful look inside the structure Val built within herself.
She personifies two key functions. The first is the prefrontal cortex. The PFC, as you know, is often described as the brain's executive function.
So how does Val define it?
She sees it as the architect, the overriding force, the reason's crown. This is the part of her that handles planning, clarity, decision-making, and override. When she feels an impulsive desire or a momentary weakness, which would be judged harshly in Doriconia, her PFC steps in.
And its motto reflects that.
I'm not the urge, I'm the override. It holds the line, plans the logistics of the climb, and ensures she adheres to the structure she has built.
That makes the prefrontal cortex the conscious strategist, constantly checking the map and course correcting. What about the other function, the nucleus?
The nucleus is described as the sovereign unseen, the pure design, the orchestrator. Where the PFC is the planner, the nucleus is the regulator of deep purpose. It acts as a kingdom of order inside the mind.
So if the PFC decides how to climb the mountain,
The nucleus ensures why the mountain is worth climbing and maintains the integrity of the self through the ascent. It's the quiet queen beneath the spire, refining emotion and ensuring the replication of clear purpose across all her actions.
it connects her to the deep Doriconian reverence for form. But she has internalized that form entirely. She is truly the product of rigorous cultural demands fused with self-directed cognitive mastery.
And we see the dramatic result in her maturation between the 2024 profile and the 2025 analysis.
The shift is profound. She moves from raw, sometimes rigid ambition, the volatile warrior seeking validation, to integrated purpose.
Her intense, sometimes damaging fire is now tempered with emotional intelligence. Her anger is transformed into focused, disciplined energy, and her vulnerability becomes the foundation, not the weakness.
So by integrating the parts of herself he once felt were flaws,
Her foundation becomes resilient and impossible to shake. The previous need to prove herself to herself is replaced by a self-acceptance that allows her to lead others more effectively.
she becomes the inner trailblazer.
Exactly, the enforcer of integrity for her whole team. The sources contrast her with her other internal figures. Devin, who focuses on recovery and steadying the process, or Addie, who provides optimism. Val is the one who locks eyes with potential, refusing to allow compromise on the standard. She is the clarifying force.
Her purpose isn't to make the climb easy. It's to sharpen the edge of everyone's capability. That brings us to the climax of her journey, the realization that true purpose requires sharing the summit.
Section 4, the shared summit and legacy. We use the final tracks of her musical journey to track this philosophical completion.
Track 8, the title track, The Climb, captures the exhilaration of individual achievement, that feeling of pushing through difficulty, where she celebrates how every scar I earn is mine alone. The summit is reached, and the immediate personal victory is complete.
But immediate victory is swiftly followed by melancholy, which track 9, the aftermath, explores with raw introspection. The cheers fade, and the silence is chilling.
It's that what now feeling.
Exactly. She questions the value of the struggle. Mountain conquered, yet meaning falls. She wonders if the whole monumental effort was just for fleeting praise. The song asks that tough question. The aftermath shows who we are.
It forces the self-reflection. Was the drive sufficient, or was something deeper missing?
And that introspective silence breaks the isolation of the lone climber and leads directly to her final, most mature conclusion.
Which is track 10, Rise Together, the philosophical resolution. Val realizes that true victory must be collective. The climb, she finally understands, is not about the height achieved, but the path we weave together.
She shifts entirely from the solitary ascent to shared purpose. Her strength multiplies when it lifts the team. The lyrics confirm this transformation from rivalry to collaboration. She vows, "I'll lift you higher. You'll show me how."
The climb becomes exponentially more meaningful when the effort is supporting others toward their own mastery. And this sense of shared, authentic purpose extends to her whole identity, including the parts she once felt pressure to hide from her traditional culture.
Which brings us to her highly viewed bonus track, Too Darn Smooth. A powerful statement.
How so?
She compares her composure and integrated identity, specifically her unapologetic queerness and love, to being peanut butter smooth and subversive. It's her refusal to be subtle or secretive anymore. She rejects the external judgment and celebrates a messy, bold, perfectly flawed love, despite the traditionalists who mock their whispers.
It's the ultimate synthesis. The Doriconian discipline and pursuit of perfection, that smoothness, applied to an authentic identity, that subversive truth that Doriconia itself might reject.
And that leads to her final powerful lesson on legacy. Resilience, Val concludes, is simply choosing to get back up after a fall, eyes open, heart intact, refusing to be defined by the setback.
And the legacy isn't about the individual height reached or the masterpieces created. It's about leaving footsteps, sharing the lessons learned from the climb, so that your hard-won path can become someone else's first map.
It's a journey from the crushing, top-down cultural demand of Doriconia to the internal, shared, and empowering structure of the climb.
What a compelling, complex deep dive this has been. Doriconia gave us the initial frame, the intense, disciplined demand for excellence as an obligation. But Val Magnoti showed us how to take that rigid structure and transform it.
Through internal conflict, necessary rebellion, and profound maturation.
Exactly. From a burdensome, lonely duty into a shared, truly meaningful purpose.
The tension between Doriconia's structure and Val's push for personal freedom and identity ultimately results in a philosophy where discipline isn't a prison. Instead, it becomes a profound form of love and commitment. Commitment to your best self and to those climbing alongside you.
We started by noting that in Doriconian culture, flawed work is considered an affront to their god of form, Orelon. The demand for perfection is spiritual, and necessary mistakes are only honored retroactively at the quiet bloom.
Right.
Val, however, comes to celebrate the climb, a process which inherently involves ongoing mistakes, setbacks, and necessary trial and error.
The challenge she presents is integrating those flaws into the ongoing process, not just the retrospective analysis. She forces us to acknowledge that if you are truly striving for the summit, you are going to encounter those messy, ugly, unfinished moments.
So what does it mean for you to view the inevitable imperfections, the half-climbs, the plateaus, and the mistakes along your path, not as a failure or an affront to duty, but as essential data points for your next shared ascent?
Yeah.
If excellence is your ultimate goal, does that obligation start with ruthless honesty about your own necessary flaws?
That's the challenge Val wrestled with, moving from lonely, performative ambition to integrated, authentic purpose. It's a beautiful question to consider as you define your own climb and determine who you are taking with you.
We've reached the summit of this deep dive. Thank you for sharing these incredible sources with us. We'll see you next time.